Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Imperfectly Thriving podcast. I feel like we need a bit of a tagline, like the podcast that helps you to thrive without the ridiculous expectations of the fitness industry, because we know that it can be quite toxic at times. We know that we don't live all like influencers, and lowering those expectations sometimes, stopping the all or nothing mentality. Like, this is what this podcast is all about. So in this episode, we are going to cover, I think it's quite a big question to be fair, something that one of the girls on Thrive asked. So usually we do like the Q&A. Now, all the girls in Thrive this week got a video feedback video, which as part of their check-in meant that we kind of answered all of their questions. Everybody got a full in-depth check-in where we talk through their progress so far, and oh my god, the girls are flying. Like, there are some amazing wins, and not just physically, not just seeing massive scale drops, changes in pictures, clothes fitting looser, but like, so many women commented on how much better their energy levels are doing, how much happier they're feeling in their bodies and just in their general routines. Like, they've got through January and they're not feeling like, oh my god, I've got to start this again, I've ruined it, you've not gone back to the same stupid diets that they've done in the past that have scorched them and then made them feel like a failure. And just to get to that point and be like, oh my god, I'm still going, I'm still showing up for myself. And it's not perfect, I'm not showing up perfectly, but I'm showing up the best that I can for myself and giving what I can on each day. And that matters. That is exactly what it's about. And this is so important when it comes to building these habits for, a healthy lifestyle, to be that person you want to be. And I talk about like showing up as your best self, and that is exactly what they are doing. And I actually had a call with one of the girls yesterday, because again, everybody on Thrive gets a success call where we talk about how they have obviously found everything so far, what they're worried about after Thrive ending, and making sure they've got a game plan, which is also the opportunity to chat about one-to-one and how we can obviously help further their results and make sure that they are not just going to finish Thrive and be like, right, accountability has gone, structure has gone, what do I do? Back to square one. Because that is the worst case scenario, and we are not about that. We're not about coming this far just to come this far. And then one of the girls was just saying, like, literally, it's mad how you can be in a calorie deficit. You can be, exercising more, walking more, like using more energy, but also feeling like you've got more energy. And I was like, exactly that. It's because exercise creates energy. It sounds crazy, but it does. Like, it helps you be more resilient to stress. It helps you to, release the good endorphins when you do exercise, and you come away feeling that buzz and you feel like you've done something for yourself. And yes, it's hard at the start, and we know it is, but once that feeling like compounds, it's amazing. What a feeling, eh? So we're going to talk today and help you to understand your menstrual cycle, help you to understand how, we don't have to overhaul absolutely everything every single week of our cycle, but it's important to recognise and pay attention to recovery, energy, performance signals, and also we're going to break down some of the myths around training around your menstrual cycle, about cycle syncing rules, and of course, understand how our cycles do not dictate what we can or cannot do, okay? It's information, it's feedback, but it's about how we respond to that, how we respond to that stimulus, how we respond to the different feelings in our menstrual cycle. So we are going to pick it apart and talk about some things that you want to be aware of, but also how to manage your cycle to the best of your abilities so that it is not completely depleting you for 1 week in every month. So I think it's important, first of all, to understand like the menstrual cycle, because a lot of women don't. Like, there's a lot of kind of misconceptions and things. Like, for instance, the biggest one is that if you're on hormonal contraception, you're not having a period. And I think that's like a difficult one for us to get our brains around. It's like, what? And I know a lot of people may still just call it a period because it's a bleed, but it is it's a withdrawal bleed if you're having like a pill-free break and things like that. Like, that is exactly what's happening. You're withdrawing from the hormones, but the hormones are stopping ovulation. So you're not having a menstrual cycle. You're not going to go through the usual phases that would happen because there's no egg being released. And that's like an important thing, to really think about. Like, I'm all about educating. I'm all about helping you to understand things better, and everything that I talk about is it's very much like evidence-based, back through science, right? Because we don't just run off, oh, this worked for me, now I will prescribe that to everybody. We are all different. And that is why it's important to learn how to respond to however you're feeling in your menstrual cycle. So we know that like cycle-based training, or what do we call it, cycle syncing, it's everywhere right now. However, the issue with that, like, you know, never lift heavy in your luteal phase, it's ridiculous at the end of the day, because it's, you know, it's not evidence-based. There's no evidence that goes to show that in your luteal phase, you know, you shouldn't do a certain type of exercise, you should just do yoga. There's no evidence to show that early follicular, when you're on your period, that you shouldn't go to the gym because, you know, you're going to injure yourself or you're going to do yourself harm. Like, all that advice is doing, it's fear mongering. It's another thing of like, I call it like the pink tax, where it's like these influencers, they try and package stuff up in pink and try and target women and their vulnerabilities, like the whole thing of like creatine gummies that have like absolutely got zero creatine in, but they've put like creatine gummies for your health and for your hair and your skin, and it's like, well, they're absolutely not, and we know that they're not for that. It's like collagen, like obviously collagen, I talk about collagen a lot, but there's no scientific studies that show that collagen is useful for like skin elasticity. There's nothing to show that it's digested and suddenly been dispersed at your skin and it's going to have those benefits. The only studies that these like collagen companies say, oh look, this is evidence-based and it's backed by science, they're the studies that have been done by or funded by collagen companies. So they're like obviously skewing the research, whereas all the independent ones, which are not, there's nothing to show that. And if you understand like how collagen works, then you'll understand that you can't just directly like drive it to your skin and be like, right, fight anti-wrinkles, because it just doesn't happen like that. And that's why I say collagen is a big waste of money. But, you know, spend your money however you like. But yeah, there's lots of fear-driven things in the fitness industry, like the whole cortisol thing and the whole, you know, don't do weights because it causes inflammation, like that's a bad thing. And, you know, like Pilates, it's as if like your muscles will suddenly know that, oh yeah, you know, my muscles are doing Pilates, so I won't be inflamed and I won't be sore. And then your muscles can suddenly know, oh yeah, I'm lifting weights, so I will be sore and I will be inflamed. Like your body doesn't know what stimulus is adding mechanical tension, but we know that lifting weights is the best way to add mechanical tension, to progressively overload, to strength train, to increase muscle mass, which will then get you toned. It will help you to have more strength. It will help you to grow more muscle. It will help you to, you know, trim your old lady body and all those things. And that is why strength training, it should be our bread and butter. Pilates can be lovely as an addition. And, you know, I'm off on a tangent here, aren't I? But, you know, I'm passionate about these things. I'm passionate. So in terms of our menstrual cycle, right, basically we have 4 phases throughout your cycle, okay? So your cycle begins on day 1 when you bleed, and that is your start of your period, right? So estrogen's rising during the follicular phase to rebuild the uterine lining that has shed. And it will peak before ovulation. So let's say, like, typically, everybody uses a 28-day cycle, but we know that cycles have been shown not to be typically like 28 days. I think it's anything like 35-ish is around like average-ish. But we say day 14 just because it's easier. Okay, so imagine that is the day that you ovulate, right? And then, of course, after that, progesterone rises sharply, and that would obviously prepare for pregnancy, although if, you know, fertilization does not occur, then that would rapidly decline and menstruation would happen, and that is exactly how your menstrual cycle works. So, of course, in regards to your cycle, it's about understanding the phases that you're at. And this is why I'm always big on like track your cycles. There's so many apps that you can use. Like, I think if like Garmin has its own little thing where you can track your period. I have the app called Clue, which is quite a good one, and that's like good for tracking as well. And it like remembers all your previous cycles and will tell you roughly like this is when you're due. And obviously if you've got like quite a regular cycle, it's easier to know that. If you're a bit irregular, then of course it's going to be a bit more difficult. But I do think like tracking your cycle is so important to help you to understand the phase that you're in and to help you to understand some of the changes that are going on in your body. However, it's not a thing of like, you know, I should feel this feeling at this certain place in my cycle, because it's not a one size fits all. Like, you know, there are so many different types of, you know, periods for different people. We know, like, obviously some women can be really affected by their periods, and obviously things like endometriosis, it's painful, it's horrible for them, and of course some of us suffer from PMDD, and of course that is horrible. And it's just worth noting that, you know, I know that, you know, in my luteal phase, that I am probably going to be a bit ratty and angry, and it's not me. Like, that's a big thing. I'm like, it's not me talking, it's my period talking, it's my hormones, and I have to detach from that and be like, okay, it will pass. For me, like, I do have slightly longer menstrual cycle, so mine's like 35 days-ish. So I know that, like, luckily my follicular phase will be a bit longer, which is nice. And then I ovulate a little bit later, and then from that day it's like 14 days after, and then I'll have a period. So I know, and I'm quite like in tune with how my body feels. I even know like roughly when I feel like, yeah, I'm ovulating. And you know, there's ways that you can like understand. And you know, you'll never like fully put your finger on it, but you can use like LH strip, I can't speak. LH strips will like tell you if there's a rise in hormones, which can like tell you if you are going to be ovulating or are ovulating, but it's not like will never pinpoint it exactly, but it just gives you a rough idea. And of course, like, you can track like, you know, like cervical fluid and things like that, which again allows you to see and, you know, like be aware of the changes that do happen. But I think more than anything, it's just understanding like, right, I'm either in the follicular phase before ovulation or luteal phase after ovulation. It's knowing that, you know, when you're due on your period and when, you know, things might inevitably feel a bit more difficult for yourself. So in regards to some of the myths that need to die on a big hill, of course, the big one, you should train differently each phase, like absolute bull donkey crap. Because if you are constantly changing your program, it's going to kill progression. Like, you want to stick with a program, progressively overloading it for as long as you can, right? That for me has looked like 20 weeks at some point, right? That's a long time. Most people are like, I'm bored after 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm like, that is killing your progression. That is killing your gains. It's killing your strength, your hypertrophy. Like, that is exactly what's holding you back in terms of why you're not seeing results, because you're changing things up. You're doing, you know, yoga on your period, and then after that's finished, then you're lifting weights and say, you know, I can only do that until ovulation, and then, oh, I feel tired and I'm feeling slumpish, so now I'm just going to go back to doing some Pilates and some light stretching. And that is exactly what kills progress. Your nervous system, you know, it doesn't reset every 7 days. You don't need to be like, okay, I have to change this up. It's going and understanding with how you feel. So again, it's another myth is the luteal phase equals weak, tired, unmotivated. That's not the case for everybody. Some of us may get it worse than others. Some people may feel absolutely banging the week before the period, and the period hits and then it's like, ugh, now I feel awful. For me, I know that the week before my period is quite tough. My period itself, I thrive, I fly. And most people don't. They will be like, oh, everything's hard, got to lower my weights, you know, got to take it a bit steadier, and that's it. It's like, if we have a certain expectation, that will shape your experience of exactly how that phase in your cycle will be. So if you set yourself up for failure and say, you know, I'm going to be weak in the gym and it's going to be awful, then yeah, you're going to be weak in the gym and it's going to be awful, right? Like, we're not fragile beings. We are real tough women and we can lift real big weights, and just changing things up because of your cycle it does not help. So things that you can do, it's like, you can go in and just go with how you feel. So if you may be having a day where you feel a bit bloated, you feel more tired than usual, then yeah, you might want to just lower your expectation around. You're probably not going to get loads of PBs. You might just need to lower the weight, even in accordance to last week. And I know, of course, progressively overloading, we should be aiming to try and progressively overload each week. However, that's not always the case, and that's fine. Like, that's absolutely fine to be able to say that and be like, okay, I'm not expecting, to move mountains today. I'm just going to move my body. And that's exactly what you should do, right? You might want longer rest time, longer rest periods between sets, you might lower the sets down that you're doing. So, usually you do 4, you might do 2 because you've not got that much to give today. And that's fine. Like, as long as you give your best and show up and do it, like, that's the most important bit, right? Changing it up and just listen. I think like this, I hate the phrase like listening to my body, because I think that it's used as an excuse and a bit of a cop out a lot of the time. Like, yeah, genuinely, sometimes when you are poorly and you are in bed, of course listen to your body. But when oh, my period is due, and you're like just telling yourself, oh, I need to listen to my body. Your body wants to go to the gym. Your body wants some feel-good endorphins, because right now you are feeling miserable. And that's the big thing. It's like, go and move your body, because you will always feel better for it. Just lower the expectation that you're not going to move mountains right now. Of course, like a lot of, again, like the influencer, the fitness space, the women's fitness space at the minute is like, you need to avoid burnout, you need to avoid injury. Like, again, there's nothing saying that, you should not lift heavy while progesterone exists. Like, it's just not a thing. Burnout usually comes from, too much volume, too much stress, underfueling, poor sleep. Like, yeah, of course, if you're doing those things, then they need to be addressed, right? You don't need to address the fact that, okay, I'm at this phase in my cycle, therefore I'm just gonna lie down and stretch my hamstrings out. Like, that's not what we do, right? So I think the big thing is, like, listening to your body is not skipping training because you feel slightly off. It's not assuming that, my fatigue is hormonal all the time. Like, some of the time it might just be lifestyle related. It might just be you slept shit the night before. It might be that you're a bit stressed at work, right? It might be, like we say, that you're under fueling and you're not actually recovering well enough from your sessions, and that's why you're sore and you're feeling rubbish. It's not just a matter of exactly where I'm at right now, I feel rubbish. So I think the thing to remember is like, notice what your cycle looks like for your body. And again, that's why, like, understand your cycle, not cycle sync. Because cycle syncing implies that, like, you sync your menstrual cycle to whatever you're doing exercise wise and nutrition wise. I know like a few coaches who will give their clients more calories like when they're on the period. And the reason I don't do that is because, again, it should not be a one-size-fits-all approach. I know personally, for me, when I'm on my period, my appetite drops and I feel sicky and I don't really eat that much. Whereas some people say I'm a ravenous beast. And it's important just to go off how that individual feels. And that's why, my program is very individualized. It's very much based on, and something that we talk about like in check-ins, and we even have like on our check-in form, is where are you at in your menstrual cycle, and how are you feeling? Because sometimes my clients might be like, oh yeah, the scales are heavier this week, and then they go down and they're like, oh, I'm in the luteal phase, and I'm like, ta-da, your period's due, you're bloated, and they're like, oh, that's why it's higher. I'll stop beating myself up now, right? So it really is just about kind of understanding where you're at and taking it on an individual basis. I don't give out like blanket things of you need more calories, because again, this stuff like this, just one size fits all approach, there's nothing to back it up. There's nothing saying that we should magically change things up because you're on your period, because that will probably just hinder you, right? You've got to ask yourself, can I train hard today? And if not, what's a smart way that I can scale back? Whether that is, like we say, scaling back expectations or physically just scaling back the weight a little bit, but still moving through the same movement patterns, still moving through the same programming. It's about, just your effort, not just be like, right, yeah, I'm not going to do anything this week, because that's just going to make you feel rubbish, right? And that's the important thing to remember. So I think the most important things to remember are like, things that you may feel in the luteal phase, so just before your period, is recovery might feel a little slower. Your heat tolerance can change, so like super sweaty workouts and stuff can feel a bit more uncomfortable because your basal body temperature does rise a little. Appetite and cravings can increase, and it's not a problem. Like, it's not a thing of like, right, yeah, you need to eat less to balance that out or whatever. It's like, yeah, of course, prioritize things you would always prioritize, like lots of protein, lots of fiber, because you want to keep yourself full, right? You want to make sure that you have that feeling of fullness, because of course, if your basal body temperature has risen a little bit, then your calorie needs can slightly go up. But again, it's a very personal thing. Like, not everybody does feel that. But of course, we know like all of this is like talking about, yes, these are some general things that you might find in the menstrual cycle. However, you know, if you are somebody who does need more adjustment, like, you know, women with severe PMS, PMDD, endometriosis, like if you have really difficult periods, then yeah, of course, you might not want to hip thrust when you're on your period. You know, you might not want to go really heavy. You might not want to do, you might want to do more lying down exercises. You might not want to. And again, it's personal preference. But like the most important thing is to recognize where you're at, right? Your cycle is information, it's data. We're loving data. We love it, right? But it's not a instruction of this is where you're at, so this is exactly what you do, right? We are not fragile. We do not need protecting and wrapping up in cotton wool because training's going to be real hard for us on our period. Like, no, I've seen some women move absolute mountains on their period, and that's brilliant for them. Like, of course you see people, or you hear about it, like doing marathon PBs and stuff like that on their periods, and I'm like, whoa, you know, winning Olympic medals, and that's cool, right? It is really cool. So stop thinking that, you know, setting yourself up for failure and thinking, right, I am going to feel rubbish, I am going to feel awful, because you're not. Consistency will always win, right? Showing up anyway, regardless. Learn your patterns and understand how your cycle feels for you, and trust your body, you know, trust in, okay, this will pass. That's something I always tell myself. I'm like, right now on my cycle, I'm feeling miserable. I hate life. Everything feels hard, but it will pass. And I'm like, sometimes I just sit back. I'm like, okay, I journal a lot, you know, about how I'm feeling at certain times in my cycle, and I'm hyper aware of exactly what's going on, and I have to detach myself and be like, right, that is my period talking. And I sit back, and in my brain I've got this image of like me sat by a river, and I'm just watching all my thoughts float on by, and I know that the better thoughts will come flying in, you know, the better feelings will come flying in. And it's the same in regards to body image. Like, you may not feel your best body image wise in the run up to your period because you may be feeling a bit more bloated, you may be feeling a bit icky about yourself, and that's cool, right? Don't expect to be wearing like super tight little crop tops in the gym that week, right? It's fine if you want to wear a big oversized t-shirt and some leggings and just put a cozy jumper on, right? And that is absolutely fine to be able to do that. However, I say this, and I'm due on my period any day. I wore like a nice little crop top in the gym today, long sleeve crop, because it is like 3 degrees. And I actually felt good, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I'm due on my period any day now. And I'm actually feeling really good. And that just goes to show, doesn't it, again, how we cannot put this thing of this is exactly how you feel at this time, because you just don't know, right? You just do not know. So I think the most important message to take from this is learn to understand your body, learn to understand the patterns, and then be kind and compassionate to yourself throughout that time. You don't need to beat yourself up. You don't need to, you know, hammer yourself for not being able to PB in that particular week because of how you're feeling. That's all good, right? And if you do need individual coaching, if you do need that support to help you, if you are somebody who slams on the effort button when you're on your period, who stops training and finds it really difficult to then get back in the gym, and finds that, you know, you do really well 3 weeks throughout the month, and then that 1 week when your period comes, like, it destroys all your progress, then reach out, because you don't want to be suffering alone. Like, you don't want to be in that position of feeling like, you know, you're against yourself, you're your own worst enemy, and doing that all or nothing thinking. So let me know if I can help. My February coaching spaces are open, and hopefully this was helpful for everybody listening. So please do give me a little 5-star rating if you enjoyed this podcast, and as ever, you go and enjoy the rest of your week.